page is turning on the book of video game history, a page that might be signaling the end of arguably the most iconic gaming expo in the world, E3. E3, or the Electronic Entertainment Expo, if you're into calling things by their full legal names, which is kind of weird.
E3, get it? Because the E's, there's 3 E's.
I think they got that a few minutes
Okay.
ago. But that expo has served as one of the industry's largest combined events for over 20 years. And honestly, it's served us pretty well. From providing a stage for some of the largest gaming announcements and reveals in history to acting as an annual pilgrimage of sorts for those who are connected to the industry, E3's meant something different to each of us over the years. If you were fortunate enough to attend one of these in person, there really wasn't an atmosphere quite like it.
And didn't you attend one too?
I did. Personally, one of my favorite gaming memories of all time was standing with a group of fellow gamers watching the reveal of Metal Gear Solid 4 on a big screen over and over and over again at the E3 event.
I've never got to go to an E3. I've always wanted to.
I don't want to jump the shark here, but you may never do that.
I know.
But we stood there, we watched it, we tried to dissect every bit of it in a fruitless attempt at comprehending the story. And honestly, all these years later, I'm still not sure any of us fully understand the story in that one. We played and beat it. But with the announcement that this year's E3 was fully canceled, both in person and virtually, that may be the beginning of the end for this industry stalwart. Or perhaps the end happened several years ago. Just nobody bothered to tell E3.
Sure, the ability to gather large groups has been impacted over the last few years, but if we are being honest, there are many competing events that have continued to be successful even with the current challenges. There's Gamescom, PAX, Tokyo Game Show, and the Video Game Awards are just a few of the major expo events that have managed these same difficulties without ceasing to exist.
Now, to be fair, the world of gaming has undergone exceptional changes over the decades of E3's existence, but that's not the actual cause of E3's downfall. The truth is the entire planet has changed since the inception of E3, including the accessibility of information and the means by which we consume it. The complexity of developing a game has changed, meaning that developers are no longer able to just simply pull a vertical slice out of a game to act as a standalone demo, with Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft all demonstrating their ability to pull in a global audience, make gaming announcements in a window of time that suits them, and most importantly, without giving valuable financial resources to E3 event organizers. So, the sustained relevance of an E3 event may simply no longer be present in a way that it once was. To put it bluntly, the major publishers and console developers no longer need E3 as a platform because they have built their own.
E3 was once the most sacred ground within the gaming world, but now life has moved on, and E3's failed to move along at the pace the rest of the world is moving at. Perhaps they took it all for granted, believing that they were integral to the gaming world and could, never be replaced.
Sure, maybe it's because they remain stuck in the past, unable to adapt to the changing marketplace and the speed of the very technology that they're representing. One way or another, E3 didn't happen this year in any way, shape, or form, and unless the organizers of this event take a very deep look at what they need to do in order to grow and commit to becoming relevant again, E3 may never return. For a variety of reasons, they lost their connection to the industry, as well as the fan base they were designed to serve in the first place. And the dangers of becoming disconnected are not unique to E3. It's a war each of us face across many different battlefronts in our lives as well.
Just like the E3 event was once the most significant event in the gaming calendar each year, our initial act of believing in God or even choosing to follow Christ is an incredibly critical moment in our lives. But if we do not move forward from that place into a deeper place of spiritual maturity, the battles that we will face, as well as the needs of those we have been challenged to reach, will move past our ability to support them.
Much like how the needs of the audience grew beyond the ability of E3 to provide a relevant product, if we're not committed to our own personal growth in Christ, we will quickly find that our meager biblical knowledge and limited spiritual depth is simply no match for the ever-growing challenges of the world that surrounds us.
Building ourselves up in Christ is not something that automatically happens through a mere statement of belief or even active service to the Lord. It is something we consciously take time and choose to do through prayer, and Bible study.
As the writer of Hebrews sagely advised us, there is a continual growth process for every believer in Christ that moves beyond the initial emotional experience and into one of intentional development and growth. While it's important that we take the time to learn and understand the foundational truths of Christ, there's also an expectation that we continue to grow and move forward in our faith. This doesn't happen by some magical form of spiritual osmosis where we just have to get close enough proximity to the Bible and other believers and we'll somehow mysteriously absorb spiritual truth. It's a daily intentional act of learning more about the God we serve and seeking deeper truth from the Word that He has given us.
The gaming industry is a nearly $200 billion industry that supports multiple trade shows and expo events every single year. But E3 did not do the work to provide something of value to a changing generation with new and unique needs.
Video games are booming and growing into multiple different avenues of consumption and monetization, but E3 failed to find a path into relevance because it did not grow along with the needs of those it was designed to serve. As video game information and news became more accessible, E3 tried to stay the same. It should have been easy to grow along with one of the fastest growing entertainment commodities on the planet, but E3 failed to recognize and adapt to the opportunities of a world that still needs what it has to offer. But now E3 has been left behind and replaced by others who grew, adapted, and filled those appetites.
As followers of Christ, we need more than simply good intentions and a belief in the Lord to make an impact in the world around us. We need spiritual growth in our own lives. Sure, the world may seem like it is a more challenging place to reach than it once was, but the gospel of Christ is never irrelevant or weak in its ability to reach others and change their lives.
As carriers of this message, we must intentionally grow ourselves and the way we communicate to match the needs of a generation who needs this truth more than ever. Let's learn from the lessons of both the church in Sardis in Revelation and the E3 event organizers. We must be vigilant and watchful and continue to strengthen ourselves in our faith if we want to remain relevant to the level of challenges facing our world today.